Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name's Don Arleth, and coming to you live from Warsaw, you're watching World News. The call is underway. That's according to a White House official. U.S. President Donald Trump is speaking with Russian President Vladimir Putin right now, marking a significant step in the ongoing efforts to bring peace to Ukraine. Trump, who has repeatedly called for an end to what he called a bloodbath that has taken thousands of lives on both sides, said he believes that progress on peace is unlikely until he and Putin meet face to face. The Kremlin has confirmed that preparations for the call were carried out and that the call is taking place right now. Trump has made it clear that Russia could face additional sanctions if it does not engage in peace talks seriously. Along with his planned conversation with Putin, Trump is also scheduled to speak with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and various NATO leaders to discuss the war. Meanwhile, Russia on Sunday launched its largest drone attack on Ukraine since the start of the full-scale invasion, escalating tensions further. Putin continues to hold firm on his conditions for a ceasefire, while European leaders, including French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, continue to push for an immediate 30-day ceasefire. With all the votes counted, Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski finished narrowly ahead in the first round of Poland's presidential election. His runoff challenger, Karol Nawrocki, came in a close second with a thin margin, outperforming several domestic polls. Trzaskowski, member of the centrist party Civic Coalition, received 31.36% of the vote, according to exit polls. Nawrocki, the candidate of the opposition Law and Justice Party, followed with 29.54%, while Nawrocki placed second overall. His support abroad was noticeably weaker. Among voters outside of Poland, Sławomir Mencen outperformed him, securing the support of 14.81% of eligible voters. If the election had been decided solely by the diaspora, Mencen would have advanced to a runoff. To win outright, a candidate must secure more than 50% of the vote. With no one reaching that mark, the runoff is scheduled for June 1st. Turnout reached 67.31%, the highest for any first round since Poland's democratic transition in 1990. International election monitors who observed the first round of Poland's presidential vote say foreign interference in the runoff remains a key concern. They noted that Poland has tackled a series of attempts, but said that the country could do more, as our correspondent John Todd reports now.
Poland's authorities took large-scale and proactive steps to protect the presidential race from foreign interference, in particular cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns. But election observers say Poland's institutions could do better by improving coordination.
We also concluded that they demonstrated clearly a proactive approach. But at the same time, the coordination and implementation of certain rules that are very much relevant to tackling online disinformation and attacks is not there yet.
While disinformation campaigns and cyber attack attempts surged in the run-up to the first round of the election, Poland's institutions said they identified and mitigated these threats. No one is expecting any let-up in these threats. John Todd for TVP World.
With Rafał Trzaskowski as president, it'll be much easier for Poland to play an important and strong role in Europe. This is what TVP World guest Adam Tracek, the executive director at More in Common Poland, said when asked about how the choice the Poles will make in the 2 weeks will affect Poland's relationship with its partners.
Of course, Karol Nawrocki, as a more of a Eurosceptic politician, will be more reserved towards Germany, towards France, all European partners basically, and of course will be on the skeptical side when it comes to the reforms of the European Union. which will also be one of the tricky questions. As I said, with Rafał Trzaskowski as the president, it will be much easier for the government to play an important and strong role in Europe and build a stronger partnership with our European partners.
Karol Nawrocki may struggle to win over supporters of far-right candidate Sławomir Mencen, who performs strongly among younger voters. That's the view of Piotr Kaczynski from the European Institute of Public Administration. Speaking to TVP World, he noted that Nawrocki's campaign has largely targeted older voters, creating a potential gap ahead of the June 1st runoff.
Mencen got 14.9% of the vote, and his coalition is actually not exclusively right-wing coalition. He's the first choice for first-time voters. He is the first choice for the youngest voters. So those are usually the most volatile voters anyway. So you will get a big question mark which way they will go. That's not one-sided that it has to go Nawrocki, because Nawrocki has a problem with being hype, with being interesting to young people. There is no interest among young people to vote Karol Nawrocki, who is considerably younger than Mr. Trzaskowski, but he's appealing mostly to the senior population, not to the youth.
Nicolae emerged victorious in Sunday's presidential runoff and is set to become Romania's next president, a move that could mark the beginning of the end of a prolonged period of political instability. Our Balkans correspondent Pavel Trzaskowski is on the ground in Bucharest with the latest.
In the runoff, Nicolae defeated George Simion, the leader of the right-wing Our Party, who won the first round of the presidential elections by a landslide with about 40% of the votes. However, on Sunday, he extended his lead only by 5%. But having received the exit polls results yesterday, George Simion said also that he is victorious in this election. However, today, on Monday, he finally accepted his defeat.
It's your victory, you know. It is the victory of thousands and thousands of people who campaigned these days, who believed that Romania could change in the right direction. Never forget the strength which you have proven over these weeks, because together we will have things we have to get past.
We have finished in counting all the ballots. We lost the second round of the elections here. I had over 5 million votes. My counter candidate won with an extra 1 million votes. We cannot accuse significant tampering with the ballots.
So eventually it will be Nicolae who will become Romania's next president. According to Romanian constitution, he has 20 days to assume the office, and he will take over from Romania's interim president, Ilie Bolojan. Ilie Bolojan, who is the politician of the National Liberals, and National Liberals are now only the sole party that constitutes the government, as the government collapsed following the first round of presidential elections. So therefore, a new government will have to be formed under the new president. Whether it will be a minority government or a majority government still needs to be determined, but the new president will have a say in the process, as, according to the constitution, it is the country's president who designates the new prime minister. From Bucharest, Romania, for TVP World, I'm Pavel Trzaskowski.
If Russia is not willing to agree to a ceasefire, then we're eventually just going to have to say this, and it's not our war. This is what U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said, referring to the impasse in the Russia-Ukraine negotiations. He also said that there is no progress made towards a ceasefire. The U.S. is likely to withdraw from the negotiation process.
There are so many different things that are obstacles that it's hard to pinpoint one in particular. Look, I think one open question is, is Vladimir Putin serious about negotiating peace, right? He has made some concessions. He has taken some serious steps in these conversations, but we feel like, we're at a point where we're hitting an impasse, and that's why the president is talking to him on the phone. I think, honestly, that President Putin, he doesn't quite know how to get out of the war. If you think about this, he's got 1 million men under arms. He's re-engineered his entire economy. What used to be manufacturing facilities making, products for people to use in their civilian life, they're now making tank shells and artillery shells and drones. And so this is a little bit of guess, but I think the president would agree that part of this is I'm not sure that Vladimir Putin has a strategy himself for how to unwind the war, of course, that's been going on for a few years now. And I think there's also just a little bit of, look, there's fundamental mistrust between Russia and the West. It's one of the things the president thinks is frankly stupid, that we should be able to move beyond the mistakes that have been made in the past, but that takes two to tango. I know the president's willing to do that, but if Russia's not willing to do that, then we're eventually just going to have to say, this is not our war. It's Joe Biden's war. It's Vladimir Putin's war. It's not our war. We're going to try to end it, but if we can't end it, we're eventually going to say, you know what, that was worth a try, but we're not doing it anymore.
Britain has agreed to closer ties with the EU, marking the biggest reset in terms of trade and defense since Brexit. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and European Council President Antonio Costa met in London at a UK-EU summit to announce the deal, which Starmer hailed as a win-win.
Today we have struck this landmark deal with the EU, a new partnership between an independent Britain and our allies in Europe. This is the first UK-EU summit. It marks a new era in our relationship. And this deal is a win-win. It delivers what the British public voted for last year. It gives us unprecedented access to the EU market.
We're turning a page. We're opening a new chapter in our unique relationship. This is the story of historical and natural partners standing side by side on the global stage.
Times are changing. The rules-based international order is under attack. Multilateralism is being tested, and the European Union and the United Kingdom are providers of global stability. We must be guardians of the rules-based global order. Europe faces gravest security threat in decades, provoked by Russia's brutal war of aggression against Ukraine.
And that concludes this edition of World News. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned because Bottom Line is coming up next.